Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Potter. I'm the Community Outreach Supervisor for Valley Water, and I'll be your MC this evening. I'd like to welcome those here at the Vietnamese American Service Center in East San Jose, and for those joining virtually on Zoom. This meeting is being recorded. Anyone who misses tonight's meeting or just wants to review it or share it with their family members can watch it in the next few days on Valley Water's YouTube channel. We appreciate your interest in what is essentially a roadmap to make sure you, your family, and businesses you support continue to receive safe, clean water for years to come. Tonight, you're going to hear about how we plan to do that. Our staff will talk about their work to create a master plan that will help us set goals and prioritize improvements for Valley Water's 3 treatment plants, as well as our advanced water purification facility. Right now, I'd like to introduce Nai Shwaya, the chairperson of the Valley Water Board of Directors. Chair Shwaya was elected to our board in 2012 to represent District 5, which includes the cities of Cupertino, Saratoga, and areas of Sunnyvale and Southwest San Jose. She was re-elected 2 more times, and I'd like to invite her to say a few words to kick off this meeting.
Thank you, Mike. Okay. Good evening, everyone, and good evening to the attendees on the Zoom for this meeting. Thank you for taking your evening to join this public meeting and listen to our master plan for our 3 drinking water treatment plant and our facility at El Viso for the Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Center. First, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Director Jim Bell, who's also here, and Director Bell represents District 5 on Water District's board. The reason we're having today's meeting and listening to your feedback input is that, as you know, supply high quality and safe, clean drinking water to Santa Clara County is our very, very important job. We do this job through a comprehensive, however, integrated infrastructure system. So that we can bring water into the county, collect water from the sky, and then manage water and then deliver water to all of you. And we not only do supply water to all of you today and next week and next year, we're also always thinking about for the future, 20 years into the future, 30 years into the future, how do we continue to supply safe, clean water to all of you in light of all the challenges we're facing now, and then these challenges will become more severe into the future, such as climate change, security challenges, emerging pollutants. The list is long. And so because of that, we're always asking ourselves the question that where we are today with our facility, and then where we want it to be into the future, so the services can continue and then meeting these potential challenges. And from now and then into the future, 20, 30 years from today, that's where master planning comes into play. As I mentioned that in this comprehensive integrated water supply system for our water supply functions, it includes 10 reservoirs, many miles of pipelines, and also 3 drinking water treatment plant, and also as I mentioned, the water purification center in El Viso. The 3 drinking water treatment plant is Rinconada treatment plant that's in Los Gatos, and then Santa Teresa treatment plant that's in Almonte Valley, and Penitenta treatment plant in North San Jose. So if you live near where we're meeting tonight, likely your water comes from either Santa Teresa or Penitencia drinking water treatment plant. And that's what our staff is going to present today. And then hearing from you, your thought and your feedback on the next 20, 30 years about this drinking water treatment plant and the purification center, how we're going to make sure the system continues to function, operate efficient and effectively, and also that meeting all the rules and regulations and all the all the challenges that into the future. So that's the purpose of tonight's meeting. And again, thank you for your participation. And with that introduction, I'll turn the mic back to
Mike. Thank you, Chair Shwaya, so much, and welcome, Director Bell. So the remainder of the meeting will be conducted in two parts. First, Senior Engineer Barton Chang and Associate Engineer Miguel Silva will provide an overview of the master plan, our progress to date, and the details of what's to come. The second part of our meeting will be dedicated to hearing from our attendees, both in person and on Zoom. You'll have the opportunity to ask our project team about the work, and we'll do our best to answer them. If we need to do a little research to get you your answer, we'll make sure to get your contact information and respond as quickly as possible. I'll now turn the microphone over to the project team.
All right, thank you, Mike. Good afternoon, everybody. Miguel Silva, Associate Engineer in Asset Management here at Valley Water. For the past 3 years, Barton and I, along with Carollo Engineers, have been working on this master planning effort. And it's definitely one of the most exciting projects I've ever had the privilege to work on, probably in the past 32 years serving here at Valley Water. This project just combines so many aspects of our work, and so many people are contributing to this project who are not here, but are definitely have been providing a lot of that work over the past 3 years. And so I'm very excited to be able to highlight these folks. For example, we have organizations within Valley Water that have contributed into where we are today, from operations to water quality, legal, environmental planners. We have health and safety, finance, procurement, communications who have set this up for us. Thank you very much. And we have laboratory, we have IT, groundwater software engineers, mechanical engineers, civil engineers, and even a chemical engineer, yours truly. We have about 20 slides here, and what we're going to be doing is primarily introducing the project along with the preliminary results that we have so far, outlining the next slide. So I'll be covering the first items here, starting with the overview of Valley Water, why we do master planning, and the master planning process itself. Barton will then follow up with the remaining 3 items here, and we'll be covering the particulars of the project, primarily the goals, recommendations, and the cost. Then finally, at the end, we'll open up the floor for questions. So first of all, who are we? And I think our director has provided you some good indications of who we are. Next slide. So if you ever go all the way to Gilroy, Southern California, you might have turned into Avenue 152 and you've gone over to Southern California, you see a reservoir over here, the San Luis Reservoir. Well, we operate infrastructure. We have a pipe taller than me that brings water all the way to the county. And we have lots of other infrastructure within the county. We cover about 15 cities, from city of Palo Alto all the way to Gilroy. Our organization was founded over about 100 years ago to provide safe, clean water, flood protection, stewardship of streams for the entire San Juan County. As Director mentioned, the 3 portable treatment plants that we have produce as much as 220 million gallons per day. And we have the advanced water purification facility that we mentioned in El Viso, and it's the largest one in Northern California. And that one can produce 8 million gallons a day of additional new supply of advanced purified water. As Director mentioned, we have these 10 reservoirs. We also have about 400 acres of groundwater recharge and 150 miles of pipe and 275 miles of streams as part of our infrastructure, including 3 pump stations and 1 intertie. But how do we do this? How do we manage all these assets? Well, with a lot of dedicated people here at Valley Water, these thousands of assets that have a combined value of $7 billion. A little bit more about that $7 billion in follow-up slides. A critical tool to managing all these assets in a cost-effective manner is in my next slide. So what we're looking here is 2 scenarios: not doing master planning and doing master planning. And what you can see in this slide is that master planning involves careful planning. It's holistic, systematic, and comprehensive, those 3 words, in terms of analyzing our existing infrastructure, our future needs, and ultimately creating a long-term roadmap. You hear that word a lot, a roadmap for the future. This is in order to provide safe, clean water 24/7, 365 days, and our goal is to do this for the next 30 years and beyond. This master plan is likely like, you might want to think of it as like a general plan, like a city general plan, but it's entirely for water treatment plants. The master planning ultimately wants to, it is used to lowering costs, to contain costs. It's aimed to looking at the big picture, addressing systemic problems in our entire asset collection, reducing water interruptions, and making better sound investments. It's been almost 50 years since our last comprehensive infrastructure master plan, and that's shown in the next slide. Many things have happened since 1975. We've had a lot of aging infrastructure. Like our director mentioned, there's a lot of new pollutants of emerging concern. There's increasing population, changes in future demand, and as director mentioned, the climate change risks have all become more clear, and with increasing challenges to our ability to provide safe, clean water. At Valley Water, we're in it for the long run. We're making good investments, and we are planning to build infrastructure that will last. Typically, plants, whenever they approach 30 to 50 years of their age, that's usually when you want to start doing comprehensive master planning. And that's shown in my next slide. What you see here in this slide is you have the 4 treatment plants here, Rinconada, Penitencia, Santa Teresa, and the newest Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Center. Now, typically a plant's lifespan is about 35 years. And our earliest Rinconada, oldest 1967 when it was put into operation. You can see the 35 years where they span over from 1970 all the way for the next 30 years. And you can see that after 35 years, some of them are going into their second cycle. And for the next 30 years, some of them will be going into third cycle. So this explains why you might see, for example, the Rinconada reliability, water treatment reliability improvement project is because we're doing a lot of it for stage 1 and stage 2, where we're extending the life of these plants. Now, what this master plan does is opens up a whole new era of planning beyond the stage 1 and stage 2. And what another similar effect that you can see with the other 2 plants is that Penitencia and Santa Teresa have now gone a significant overhaul in their system that now has addition of ozonation into their treatment system. And so that is part of what we have in ongoing stage 1, stage 2, and now we're looking at for the next 30 years. You might have seen some of these concerns about aging infrastructure and in our messaging, and that would be in our next slide is an example. What this shows is it expresses a concern about our aging water infrastructure, that the need to invest, permit, and build. I'll show you how we all do this through the master planning cycle in the next slide. A key to this slide is these 4 boxes, and the key thing too is iterative, is a cycle. The first box at the very top is we evaluate the problems. What are the problems? We define them. What are our needs? What are our gaps? The second box right there, we start to developing solutions to these particular projects, to these problems that we've identified, these needs. What are those projects? And the third box down in the bottom, we coordinate and develop a 30-year program and start phasing these recommendations and projects. The fourth box here, we begin implementing projects using a 10% level of design, along with the programmatic environmental impact report. Our plan is to periodically update the master plan and restart the master planning cycle. Next, I'll show you a little bit more details about this master planning development and give you a little insight of the mechanics of what master planning is. So this is a very busy slide, but I'm going to go from left to right, starting from this side, and walk you through what our process is. First, we start working with our planning as basis of planning. This consists of 3 things. We define our goals and objectives for the project. We also do a condition assessment, and we identify what our methodology would be. Now, when we do condition assessment, we actually go out and inspect every single asset. We have over, under this scope, probably over 8,000 assets that we go. We've collected thousands of photographs, videos, testimonies from our subject matter experts, and we consolidate this into a condition report to get an idea of what our infrastructure is, what level of reliability, how much life is left in our assets. Next, we start looking and putting all this together, all these conditions, and developing what our needs are. We have created a whole list of needs, and we work with our engineers, with our professionals, and start classifying them into 3 categories: high priority, low priority, and in the middle, medium priority, and start grouping them so that we start prioritizing them and work on to the next cycle, which we start bundling them into what are we going to do as a project for the next 10 years, and then 10 years afterwards, and so forth. But another critical part here is we start screening them. We screen them for fatal flaws. We work with our subject matter experts, with our engineers, with our operators, water quality specialists, and start rejecting any of those proposals that don't make any sense, with the whole goal of lowering costs and maximizing value. For the next part, after we develop our recommended alternatives, I want to point out this is where we are right here. We've developed these recommended alternatives, and they're very preliminary. We do have 1.5 years to go with this project. And what we're going to do is we're going to be refining. What do I mean by refining? Well, we're going to be improving our designs, our cost estimates. We're going to be looking at improving the project phasing, and ultimately, as well as I mentioned, developing that programmatic environmental impact report. With the whole goal of the final part of this is developing the final project plan. In the next slide, I'm going to show you how this has to do with the current timeline. The first part of this arrow is where we are now. As I mentioned, we've been here about 3 years. We got a year and a half to go. And afterwards, these 10 years for the first priorities start kicking in. And so we've lined up projects that will be in the first 10 years, 2025, 2035. And afterwards, we're going to be focusing on the medium priorities. And ultimately, the lowest priority would be in the last phase. Now, another part about here for maintaining an adaptive strategy that you might say, well, 3 years planning is a lot of time. Things can happen. Well, we have a strategy for that too. In the next 10 years, we're going to do an update of this master plan itself. We want to make sure that if there's any economic opportunities to lower cost even further, maybe there's new technology, maybe there's new regulations that we did not anticipate. All those assumptions will be questioned, validated next 10 years so that we can make corrections in the direction that we move. Again, to lower cost and maximize value. So with that in mind, that'll give us an opportunity to provide clean, safe water for the next 30 years. And next, Barden, the project manager of this project, will walk you through the particulars of the project. Next slide, thanks. Thanks, Miguel.
All right, thanks. So I'm Barton Ching. I'm the senior engineer in our asset management unit and project manager for this project. So as Miguel mentioned earlier, we established goals and objectives for this master plan, and we're getting a little more detail about what that means for everybody. So at the beginning of the project, we set goals and objectives for this master plan so that we can identify, you know, what is aspirational, how do we want the treatment plants to function for the next 30 years? And we worked with stakeholders and our retailers to work these out. I'll explain, you know, quickly. We have 3 categories here on the screen: capacity, reliability, and water quality. So capacity as a goal means that we want the treatment plants to be able to deliver their capacity out to 2050 and meet our retailers' demands. Retailer demands that are some are increasing. For reliability, we want to provide reliable production from the treatment plants, even with certain parts of the treatment plant offline. It's like in the winter when demands go down a little bit, we can take parts of the plant offline and do preventative maintenance to make sure it's running and 100% functional during the summer when the demands come back up. Another part of the reliability goals is making sure that we have spare components and spare parts of the treatment plant in line, ready to come online in case there's a premature failure of some component. And that'll come up later, and that's specifically for our critical processes. Under water quality, there's 2 kind of sub-goals here. One is we have to continue to meet our regulatory commitments and make sure our finished water meets all of our requirements. And Valley Water has even stricter requirements than what our regulators require. And secondly, is to keep an eye on that goal. What are some potential contaminants that are of emerging concern that we need to be tracking and be ready to treat even before the regulations come in? Next slide, please. Last 2 goal categories that we had are climate mitigation and equity. Under climate mitigation, we have really kind of two prongs there. It's adaptation and mitigation. So under mitigation, we want to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions at the treatment plants. So maybe it's thinking like electric vehicles or more efficient generators for backup, things like that. Under adaptation, climate change is warming the climate, and so we want to make sure that our electrical rooms and mechanical equipment can operate under higher temperatures. We want to make sure we have enough air conditioning and HVAC equipment to sustain operations. And our equity goal, we also have this as kind of a 2-pronged approach. So we want to incorporate equity into our process and in our outcomes. So under the outcomes, we want to make sure that whatever projects we produce are equitable to our community. And also we want to be aware of the impacts to rates and the costs of the projects, as Miguel's mentioned many times. And on the process side, we want to involve the community, stakeholders, our retailers in the development of this master plan. And part of that is why we're here today. Next slide, please. So what does this look like on the ground? What is the master plan doing? And so I'm going to kind of break down in the next two slides a little bit about what some of these goals have kind of driven us to look at. So Miguel mentioned we've got nearly 8,000 assets at the treatment plant of assets that are valued over $5,000 each. Each of these assets, we're tracking the age, the performance, and its condition. And our very comprehensive asset management program is already in place. But now we're looking at it holistically, right? Now we've got these assets that are aging, they need to be replaced, and put them on a list. And on the next slide, I'll cover some improvement projects. So this is like an example of a reliability type project. I mentioned earlier, for reliability, we want to make sure if there's a critical chemical, we want to make sure that we have at least a backup tank of that chemical and ready to go in case there's a leak on the tank, for example. So we've identified areas where we could improve and add more storage. And we've identified this across all three plants. And this helps us make sure that we have sufficient chemical storage when demands go up in high flow season. So this is an example of like a process improvement. So on the next slide, I talk about how these kind of improvements kind of get pulled together. So I mentioned before, we've got aging equipment. We've got equipment that's going to be corroding and getting some condition that needs. And those are kind of out in this pool. So this conceptual slide shows over a 10-year period how we looked at all of these needs, and they might maybe have individual needs for replacement in different years within this 10-year window. And the way we're grouping them is a conceptual project A and a conceptual project B. And if the needs kind of fall within the first 5 years of this, and it makes sense to bring them together. Sometimes it's age-based, sometimes it's based on the year, sometimes it's based on where that need is at the treatment plant. Make sure that we can be efficient about taking part of the treatment plant down and doing the work in that area at one time. So in this project A, we're grouping the needs, and in project B, we're grouping the needs, and then we'll implement them in kind of two steps, two phases. In project A at a treatment plant, I will design it and construct it. And then while that project is in construction, we'll start the design for project B and then do construction for that in the second half of the 10-year period. Having done all of that, we've at a preliminary level now, like Miguel mentioned, we still have a lot of refinement to do on these, but at a preliminary level, we want to present, at the high level, at Santa Teresa, we're looking at proposing 2 capital projects over the first 10-year period, the high priority period. The capital project A with the value of 21 million, and the capital project B, that one's at a cost of 49 million. In the Penitencia, we have 1 capital project, project A, 66 million. And at Rinconada, the capital project A with a cost of 41 million, and a second project cost of 19 million. Before we go to the next slide, I just wanted to quickly say, why is there 1 project at Penitencia? So they're like Director Shoya mentioned before, on this side of the county, Santa Teresa and Penitencia feed the distribution system to treated water retailers on the east side. And Santa Teresa's capacity happens to be 100 million gallons per day. At Penitencia, the capacity is 40 million gallons per day. So we're thinking if we're going to be taking parts of the treatment plant down to do work, maybe we could do 1 longer shutdown at Penitencia during the winter and allow Santa Teresa to cover the demands on the east side and not have to come back and do multiple projects at Penitencia. So that's one of the efficiency thinking there. We'll go to the next slide, please. I mentioned before the chemical storage tanks as a kind of a project that needs to be addressed at all the plants. And this is another kind of idea for finding efficiencies in the project is if we have needs that are at multiple plants, we can kind of group those into 1 project and have 1 contractor bring the same type of equipment to all the 3 treatment plants. And we'll have the same spare parts and the same maintenance requirements. And so under a chemical storage or reliability improvement project, that one was proposed at $40 million. And then we also have another multi-plant project in the same kind of thinking. That one's an ozone generator replacement project. that one would be just at Santa Teresa and Penitencia, $47 million. And for folks, ozone is the primary disinfection equipment. This slide shows at a summary level the kind of the costs of all the projects on one page. And did want to note that the total sum of all of these is we plan to spend $283 million on all the water treatment plants over the next 10 years. And that's the way that we're bringing good value. And we consider considering the overall value of Valley Water's infrastructure over the next decade. And the next slide, my final slide, I'm going to give an overview of Valley Water's infrastructure value. So this there are two pie charts here, and this first pie chart shows the total infrastructure replacement value, what it would cost us to replace our assets in 2020 dollars. It's pre-inflation, right? And so we have the dams, the pipelines, our ponds, recharge ponds, our raw water pump stations. All of those combined is about $5.2 billion. And then in the blue piece of this pie, the treatment plants were valued in 2020 at $1.7 billion. And so if we zoom in on that blue, you look at that blue circle on the right, you see Rinconada's replacement value is $750 million. The Advanced Purification Center is $64 million. Penitencia is $354 million. And Santa Teresa Water Treatment Plant is $650 million. So we think, you know, that doing some overall comprehensive planning, that 283 is actually pretty good value for the value of the assets that we're maintaining. So with that, I think the last slide I have here is opening for a few questions and Q&A. I did want to note that we have a QR code on the top right there, which will take you to our project page on Valley Water's website. The YouTube link to this video, the recording of this video is going to be posted on the website. And there's more contact information if you want to reach out to us. My email and phone number are on here in case you'd like to reach out to me. If you can't think of a question to ask immediately, I'm happy to take comments and questions over the next month or so, but pass the mic back to Mike.
Thank you so much, Barton, and thank you, Miguel. Miguel and Mike. Okay. So for our Q&A session, those here in the room can just raise your hand and we'll take your questions. For those on Zoom, you can also ask a question, but please don't use the chat box because it becomes difficult to follow. You can use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen and staff will take the questions as they come in. Another option is you can use the raise your hand feature next to your name to verbally ask your questions. We'll call your name and enable your microphone so that you can unmute yourself. Are there any questions in the room? I have a feeling we'll go right to the Zoom questions. Go ahead, Gianna, and there's a microphone right in front of her so that'll pick it up for the Zoom attendees.
So the first question that came across is, will the treatment plants be offline during construction? And if so, how is that going to impact my drinking water?
Right, so the interruptions to, the impacts to the water treatment plants, I think I covered that a little bit, but it is worth mentioning. Every need that we've identified has a different type of impact to operations. So some of the work can be done without any kind of treatment plant impact or shutdowns. Some of them are partial and some of them are full. We will, of course, time the work and coordinate the work with all of our pipeline work and operations so that there will be no interruption. We're not planning to have any interruptions to our water delivery. That answers that question.
For a follow-up question is, I noticed on the slide that the price tag was nearly 300 million. How is that going to impact my rates, the water rates?
The costs. Well, as a reminder, one of the reasons we're doing master planning to begin with is to contain costs, lower those costs, and get the maximized value. So one of the things that we do in Valley Water is we have a report called the protection and augmentation water supply report. We print out around January, February every year. And what it does is projects the water rates every year for the next 10 years. And right now, for the next 10 years, a lot of this infrastructure cost is already baked into those numbers. And every year, our finance department updates that, taking into consideration the latest updates with the master plan and all our other expenses, so that people are informed and can see what the crystal ball is for the next 10 years. Thanks.
I do want to add one point too, just to clarify that these proposed projects are preliminary. They're not in our CIP. They're not in our capital improvement program yet. They're like I said, about a year and a half away from being implemented. And so at that point, they will go before the capital improvement program, the committee, to be considered for actually including it into our CIP. And from then, then we would see the real rate impacts for those individual projects. And, they will slightly change from now until then too.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions, Gianna, from our online audience?
Yeah, with the amount of construction that'll be going on, are we looking into steps on how to offset any impacts to the environment? And if so, what does that look like?
Great question.
Great, yeah, thanks. And repeating what I said earlier, the projects, are in master planning right now. And so they're not, in the traditional sense, construction projects that are about to go into construction. So we are developing a PEIR to kind of identify all of the actions and potential mitigation needs for those projects at this point. Oh, I'm sorry, the PEIR, Programmatic Environmental Impact Report. And so that should cover most of the general activities that we anticipate. If anything changes, of course, those projects will come forward and they'll have their own, CEQA checks. So every project will do its own CEQA. Sorry, California Environmental Quality Act. I use too many acronyms. All right, Jacob, that's it.
Thank you so much. And for our audience, we try to eliminate acronyms for our public meetings. Yeah, any more?
Yeah. Are you gonna include fluoride in any of the new treatment processes? And if so, what are my options if I don't want my water treated with fluoride?
That's a great question.
All right.
We'll let you have that one.
Yes, so just for clarification, where we are in terms of fluoride, Valley Water is applying fluoride to our water in San Teresa and Penitencia about 7 to 8 years ago. That has started. And as far as Rinconada, we're looking at it for the next 5 years. Looking at 2029, we will have fluoride in there. And so there is efforts in terms of treated water coming from Valley Water is fluoridated in those areas and will be fluoridated for the other treatment plant. Now, groundwater is throughout the county. We have 2 major groundwater basins, sub-basins, and the water from there is not fluoridated. It depends on where folks are extracting groundwater from either the South County or the North County, but that would be outside of this master planning effort. Right now, there's no scope of fluoridating water beyond what is planned and what I outlined. Thanks.
I have, sorry, one follow-up that might tie into that one.
Sure.
Is during the construction, will there be any change to the way my water looks or tastes or smells?
Good question. Right now, we have taken precautions to make sure that we implement and phase all of our projects during the time where we minimize any kind of interruptions to the flow of providing clean, safe water. And we don't anticipate any changes in terms of taste or quality of the water. In fact, some of our projects that we're proposing will actually increase the safeguards to control taste and odor concerns as far as drinking water. All right, great.
Thank you for that answer. Gianna, how are we doing?
I have one more.
Okay.
So right now, you guys mentioned Rinconada, and I know that right now Rinconada is already going through some lengthy construction. Is this on top of that, or is this running concurrently with the current Rinconada project?
Great question.
Yes, Miguel mentioned the Rinconada Reliability Improvement Project. And that was on that slide that had all the arrows and the different eras of investment. And the RIP project, the Reliability Improvement Project, there I go again. It was initiated over a decade ago, and those needs were, needed back then for the Rinconada. But since then, more needs and more areas of that plant needed to be refreshed and looked at. So, we can't afford to stop and say, okay, we're not gonna do planning for Rinconada. And so that's why we have scope for that's why we're including Rinconada. Yes.
Come on up.
Just a little bit more information about the current Rinconada reliability project that's going on. The primary purpose of that project is, first of all, to increase the capacity from 80 million gallons a day to 100 million gallons a day. Rinconada is the only treatment plant that's supplying treated water to the west side of Santa Clara County. During the summer, when the demand is really high, the current 80 million gallons per day capacity is really, I mean, I had staff explain to me that basically it's tied together by a piece of rope. Yeah. So we really need to do that so that to provide the reliability. That's why it's called reliability project. And also that I think it's changing the treatment process to the ozone. Yeah, to the ozone. And ozone treatment is already implemented for Penitencia and sanitary treatment plant, and Rinconada is the third one. So those are the major things that's being done for this Rinconada reliability project. And then what Barton and Miguel are talking about is more how ongoing asset management into the future. I mean, each facility has about thousands of pieces of assets. You said worth $5,000 and or more, and then that's what they're presenting for this master plan moving forward. So I hope that's.
Thank you so much for that perfect clarification, Chair Shoya. As if you have a lot of experience in this line of work, perhaps. And you're also the chair of our Capital Improvement Program Committee, so maybe you've seen a few of these requests come through. Gianna, we don't have any other questions coming in. Any from the audience? With that, I think I'd like to thank our presenters and Valley Water staff for their work this evening. I'd also like to thank our audience for your feedback. Your input is important and informs us on how best to provide this community with a great project. We'll continue to keep you informed with regular updates at valleywater.org and postings to Nextdoor. And we have a QR code to keep in touch with this project as well. Before we close, we also ask that you consider learning more and providing your input on two critical Valley Water efforts: our water supply master plan, which is what Valley Water's guiding document for long-term investments and planning to ensure water supply reliability for the county's social, economic, and environmental well-being. Information can be found at the handout or at a shared link in the chat box. And also our capital improvement program contains all of our capital projects. The annual review of the projects for potential placement on the CIP is beginning. We want your input on the projects and we should prioritize. And there's a link in the chat as well for that. Good night, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you. And I should have said, please help yourself to king egg rolls, which are on the side here. There's chicken and vegetarian and cold water. Can't leave without taking at least one.